What is up there, people of the YouTube? It is Platinum Glasses here, and today I want to talk about infantile spasms. The reason why I'm making this video is to spread awareness of this because it was kind of amazing how not a lot of people actually know about what is infantile spasms. And this is mostly a video I'm making for my family to understand the entire thing that's been going on for the past month with my son Archer. Infantile spasms is literally a seizure that a baby admits, and it affects about 1 out of 1,200 infants. And it is very, very important to catch this thing as early as possible because there could be some damaging effects. Those effects can really delay developmental processes in a baby. So if your baby was speaking or trying to learn how to speak or trying to learn how to do something, that spasms, those infantile spasms, those seizures can actually delay that and kind of make him slow in the long run if it's not diagnosed. So our son Archer was diagnosed with infantile spasms just last week of recording of this video. And it was an eye-opener on the sake of how crazy it was to actually figure out what it was going on. The whole story is insane, to be honest with you, and it is. I'm gonna try to sum it up as best way I can so I don't ramble on, make this video way longer what it is. So let's just get to the beginning. On Halloween night, my wife and I put our son to sleep on our bed because unfortunately he doesn't really like the crib. When he gets into a crib, he gets very claustrophobic. He can't really relax. He mostly sleeps there to nap, but at night he really just can't really get into it. But so we put him on our bed, and my wife is going to the bathroom. I'm in the kitchen, and what I'm doing in the kitchen, I'm just basically washing his bottles for the next day when he needs it. So while my wife was in the bathroom and I was cleaning his bottles, unfortunately our son fell off the bed. Now our bed is not that high off the ground. We don't have a metal frame underneath our bed. It's just a box spring and the mattress, so it's not really that high off the ground. And also we redone our carpet not too long ago, and it's very, very soft. It's like pet friendly, safe, and it has like a very thick padding on the bottom, so it's very, very soft. So I'm in the kitchen, and all of a sudden I just hear Archer scream and cry. Ran into the room, and where I found him on the foot of the bed on the floor, stomach on his stomach with his face turned to the side, you know, basically kind of laying like this. And normally that's how he sleeps, to be honest with you. So I saw him and I picked him up, and of course my mother-in-law and my wife ran into the room wondering what was going on. And I had to tell him the bad news that he did fall off the bed. He started crying for about 30 seconds and then immediately stopped. And then he started smiling at me, my wife, and my mother-in-law. And he was playing with his toys afterwards for like the next 2.5 hours before he got sleepy and he went to bed. So, of course, we got scared. We wanted to make sure that it was nothing, like he didn't fall on his head, he didn't break anything, didn't bump anything. There was no bruises, there was no lumps, there was no any marks on his body to actually show anything that he fell. You know, like he was completely fine. He got up, stopped crying, played his toys for a couple hours, and then he just went to bed. And the next day he was acting pretty normal. So that next day my wife called the pediatrician to tell him what happened, and they literally just told us, just observe him, make sure that he's eating, make sure he's sleeping correctly, and everything should be fine. Soon things did not turn out to be fine because of the fact that his behavior has changed so dramatically. He went from being kind of like a very outspoken, trying to make words, trying to make as much noise as he can, to being very quiet. He started playing with a lot of his toys and doing all sorts of things, and then he started to not really be interested in his toys. And my wife, which I give her full, I completely understand why, she became very, very stressed out and upset because she was trying to figure out if our son had like some sort of brain hemorrhage or a brain injury. So this is where the shit really starts going crazy. For the next few weeks, so this is the entire month of November. For the next few weeks, we gone to the pediatrician multiple times. We went to the emergency room doctors multiple times, and they have both told us that nothing is wrong with Archer. But that was not the case. my wife started noticing that my son started doing eye rolling and head dips. I'm going to put a video up here right next to me, wherever I'm going to put it, to show you guys what we're talking about. He was doing these eye rolling head dippings, and it was very concerning because we don't know if he was like passing out or he's having if he had a concussion or something. We didn't know. And every single time that we show the pediatrician these videos or to the ER, they just keep writing it off thinking it was nothing. And that's the biggest issue about infantile spasms. A lot of doctors and a lot of pediatricians do not recognize it as anything serious. They think it's just a kid or a baby just reflex. They're just randomly reflexing themselves. You're trying to learn, oh, they're trying to learn how to use their eyes. Oh, they're trying to learn their muscles on their arms or something like that. But there's something different about this, but they just never ever really did anything about it. And it really upset us because we were just kind of going like, can we do something? Can we do some tests? Can we do some blood work? But they just never wanted to do anything besides just wave a light on their eyes or in his eyes, or check his heartbeat or check his breathing or something like that, you know, scan his head with their hands. And it was very upsetting because it's just kind of like, listen, he has not stopped this since the fall. So we talked to a good friend of ours, and she told us to go to a different pediatrician. So we set up an appointment to the new pediatrician, and we go there that day, and we told him what was going on. I showed him the videos, and this guy literally says, I'm going to get you in an appointment to see a neurologist. Immediately, the guy knew something was wrong, and he put us to a neurologist that was about 30 minutes away from where we live. So we booked the appointment. A week and a half later, we went to the neurologist. We talked to the neurologist. He told us what was we told him what was going on. We showed him the videos. We persisted in trying to figure out what was going on with our child. What was going on with my son? Because this is not normal. We talked to the neurologist, and he wanted to do an EEG, which is basically they put leads on your head and monitor your brain waves to see how you are. So we booked that appointment. We come back, I believe, the next day or the day after. We go to the EGE, and what they do is they first do 15 minutes of just strobe lights to the kid's eyes to make sure that he doesn't have like a form of epilepsy where flashy lights and multiple flashes or stuff like that just causes him to do the seizures. Luckily, nothing happened, which I could already tell that he doesn't do that because there's so many times Archer will be on my lap and we'll be watching Overwatch League, Rainbow Six Siege, esports competitions, CSGO, or whatever other gaming videos I watch, and there's flashy shit all over the place, and he doesn't react. He just kind of sits there and just chill. Sometimes he'll fall asleep. Sometimes he'll just relax. He'll be very fussy, but he sees that he comes relax. So we did the EEG. I can never say that word right. We do the EEG. And they told us, give us about 2 to 3 business days and we will tell you what the results are. So then we get the call, which started a whole week of just, it was just a whole week of just exhausted, tired worry. I've only had 4 hours of sleep because I went to drop off my mother-in-law to work at around 4:30, came back around 5, fell asleep around 9 o'clock, 9:30. My wife wakes me up out of a deep sleep saying like, hey, the neurologist called. We got to go to his office right now. He says that the EEG came back at normal. And immediately, my wife and I start becoming upset and panicking because we just don't know what that means, or we don't know if it's as serious as he's making it seem. So I'm putting on basketball shorts covered in paint, my shoes that I wear that are completely like stained green to mow the lawn once in a while, and a shirt that just has holes somewhere, you know. And my wife just puts on some shorts, flats, and a shirt, and we drove our asses to his office. And the entire time I'm holding my wife's hand, and she's very scared and she's very worried, which she has every right to. It's our child. We worked on having him for 2.5 years. And then all of a sudden, this stuff happened. So we get to the neurologist's house, and he tells us that the EEG came back at normal, which is a sign of seizures, or in the way he says, infantile spasms. So he told us that at that moment, we need to make a drive to a children's hospital up in Orlando, where this hospital is about an hour and a half where we live. We live in Palm Bay. It's all the way in Orlando. He told us to leave immediately because he's going to write a referral to get us in there as quickly as possible. So what my wife did, we drove back a half hour to our house, and we start stocking up everything for him. We didn't give a shit about ourselves. We just start stockpiling diapers, wipes, food, toys, blankets, clothes, anything. We just start stockpiling everything into his stroller, into his diaper backpack, just so we could figure out, like, because we don't know how long we're going to be there. We don't know what's going to happen. So we drive an hour and a half all the way to the emergency room, and we get there from when we arrive. We arrived there, I believe, probably around 11:30, close to noon. And we got there, and it took the entire day to get from the emergency room to the other room because they needed to do an MRI and a spinal on our son to figure out if there was anything wrong with his brain. So that night, we spent the night at the hospital. Next day, we're still waiting. We're still waiting on the whole thing about the MRI. We're still waiting on a whole bunch of other things. Then they told us, like, okay, we're going to do the MRI today, but we're also going to have to do EGE monitoring on your son the entire time he's here. So that means those leads on his head, he has to literally stay in bed the entire time. Like, the photo that I'm showing you right now is what he looked like. And of course, these two photos, you can see, you know, he was just sitting there, just chilling. The reason why he has a thing on his arm, because they put, I believe, an IV into his arm, and they were just covering it up just to make sure he doesn't rip it out. So he has those leads in his head the entire 4 days. I'll say 3.5 days we were at the hospital. So we did the MRI, and it was like the most nerve-wracking thing ever, because you're literally saying, like, okay, here's my baby. And then you have to wait 2 hours until you can get him back, because they have to sedate Archer since he's a baby, and in the MRI you have to sit still, and unfortunately babies don't really sit still. So they had to sedate him and then put a tube down his throat to keep him breathing. And it's like those things are just always the words. Those words just immediately just cause panic, because automatically you think about that 1 in millionth chance that something bad will go wrong. The second Archer goes, my wife and I just were holding back tears because we're just so scared of what's going to happen. So 2 hours later, Archer comes back, and they said everything was success, and Archer is just sitting there, and he's slowly coming out of the anesthesia. Now, bear in mind, because the whole thing about the MRI, my son haven't really eaten or drinking anything for almost 12 hours, maybe more. So when he woke up, he was hungry. They gave us like this little small bottle of sugar water. He drank that thing down like it was a fucking cocktail shot. Like, he was so hungry, and we gave him another one and another one and another one just to calm him down. So after all that, we still didn't know if we were going to be discharged or it's going to be another night, because we've been there for 2 nights, and right now my wife and I have just been eating nothing but chips and cherry Coke for the entire 2 days, and went out one night to get Subway sandwiches. And we're very exhausted. We barely have any sleep. And then on top of that, I have to drive back an hour and a half to my house to drop off my mother-in-law to work, because unfortunately she can't drive. She has a phobia of driving, so I have to drive her. It's what it is. I've accepted that, and I take responsibility. I've taken the responsibility of doing that, and I have no problem with it. So I just want to put that out there, that everything is fine with that. All right, I'm okay with it, so everything is fine. So I have to drive an hour and a half to the house. I get there around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Try to sleep as much as I can before waking up at 4 to drop off my mother-in-law at work at 4:30, and then drive a back hour and a half to the hospital around 6 a.m. and then be there for the rest of the day. Because right after they did the MRI, they said, okay, we're going to have him here for one more night, another EGE, and that's how it is. And the EGE is very, very difficult, especially when you got my son, who is like constantly trying to move around. Which, by the way, for 7.5 months, they said he actually learns how to sit up by himself, which is unbelievable. They said that's very advanced for a 7.5-month-old to just go from trying to learn how to crawl to basically sitting up and balancing himself by himself, which I'm very, very proud of my son. So that day, he started to wake up and everything was starting to go back to, him being just awake and all that kind of stuff. And what sucks about a baby being in that position is that he's trying to sleep, but every hour, which I understand, a nurse comes in, has to check his vitals, check his blood, check his heart, check his breathing, check the lead. So he didn't really get much sleep at all in the 4 days we were there. And we thought we were going to be discharged on a Saturday. And they told us that, oh yeah, there's a possibility you're going to be discharged. So my wife and I started like cleaning up and packing up everything. But then they told us that the medication that Archer has to be on, they will actually want to keep him here for another 24 hours to see how the medicine affects him and see if it does any sort of issues or it actually helps out anything. So we had to spend another night there, which again, I had to drive back home to drop my mother off back at, at work and then drive back. So Sunday, we get everything situated, and they told us like he has infantile spasms. They're basically a seizure, and it's mild at this point. So we finally get discharged around noontime, and we drive back home, and this is where we are right now. It's currently 1:40. Almost 2 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, December 11, 2019, and we came back home Sunday afternoon. And he's been doing a lot better on the sake of his episodes of his spasms have been smaller. Like he's been having less spasm in a short amount of time. Because he used to be doing spasms so many at a large time. Like he'll go for 10 minutes straight, 5-10 minutes straight, and have like maybe 13, 15 to 20 spasms in that time frame. We've been noticing, my wife has been keeping track, that we're noticing that he's been having less spasms at a short amount of time. Like the less he had, I think the shortest one he has had so far is probably 5 or 6 in a minute, which is a big improvement from like 20 to 30 or something, and then like 20 in like 10 minutes. We're keeping our fingers crossed, and we're hoping that it didn't leave any damaging effects to him, because like I said, these spasms can basically minimize developmental delays, which means that it could delay any sort of further improvement or him developing any sort of skills or learning how to talk or learning stuff. Because like I said, he used to be going ba, da, ka, all that kind of stuff. He started like using consonants and vowels. Now he's just going that kind of stuff. And there's a brief moment sometimes where he kind of goes air, hair, or ka, or ba, or da, that kind of stuff, where it's like there's moments of those. And I'm hoping that with this treatment and the medication they give us, it can either lessen the episodes or get rid of it altogether. My frustration with this was at the pediatrician and the ER doctors. I'm not going to say their names, but my frustration is with them that they have been constantly, with video evidence, with photo evidence and video evidence, they did not even remotely think it was anything more than just him learning how to use his eyes or learning how to use his head. It frustrates me that something like this that can have damaging effects is very unknown to a lot of people. A lot of people on Twitter, because when you type up infantile spasms on Twitter, you get a lot of people who say the same thing, where they had months of dismissed diagnosis from their pediatricians and doctors until they actually get what they needed. And this is something that I want people to understand, that if your child has something that that something's wrong, do not give up, persevere. Because we could have been one of those parents that just took the doctor's word and just said, then he's just fine. And he would have kept going and going and going and going. We don't even know. I can't even imagine the permanent damage that could affect on our son if we never persisted as much as we did. Because we didn't stop going to the doctors until we get what we wanted. We wanted him to be checked out, and none of them did that until we had to go to a second pediatrician who, on that fucking day, gave us what we wanted, to go to a neurologist to test him out. That's all we wanted to do. Fortunately, it didn't give us the answer that it didn't give us the good news we wanted, but we got the answer that we needed, what it was and how to treat it. That's all we wanted for the past month. The entire month of November was just a cluster of doctors and the pediatrician not really taking this seriously. So if your child has exhibited these type of movements, these types of spasms, please go to your doctor and get them checked out, because these can affect your child's developmental skills, your motor skills when they grow up. And I know that nobody wants their child to have delays in their life. You want them to be healthy and continuously grow. So please go to your doctor, go to a pediatrician, and if they don't listen to you, find somebody else to go. Find somebody else that will listen to you. Find somebody else that will give you what you need. Because if you don't, things can go wrong. I want to say thank you to the Advent Hospital in Orlando for taking care of us and giving us all of the attention and love they gave us on those 4 days, helping us as much to get the answers that we need. I want to thank Dr. Sony, who's a second pediatrician, who gave us the referral to go see Dr. Shimino, who did the EGE, tell us, and he was very upfront with us. I need to also add this. He said Dr. Shimino and Sony and even the doctors and neurologists at the Advent Hospital all say that the fall had nothing to do with this spasm, has nothing to do with it. It was just a coincidence, and if it had any sort of effect with it, they would have told us straight to our faces that that was going to happen. That was the cause of it, but it wasn't the cause of it. Infantile spasms can happen. So please get your babies checked out if they start exhibiting eye rolling, head dippings, or if they're on their back, they start doing like crunches with their hands. Get them checked out, and do not take no for an answer until you get them checked out by a neurologist, EGE, or anything to get what you want. Because right now, my wife and I are doing whatever we can to get him back to where he was. We got to do weekly periodic checkups with him. And the next 2 weeks, we got to go back to Advent Hospital, do another 24-hour EEG tests for 24 straight hours. So we're going to be there overnight again. And we're just praying and just hoping that everything will be fine at the end. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, spread the awareness of infantile spasms. And I hope you guys have a good, healthy, beautiful week. Peace out.